In this New World video, we are going to go over the best PvP perks for the Great Axe. I'm also going to cover the armor perks. The first best perk for the Great Axe is Refreshing Move. The Refreshing Move is really good on the Great Axe since you want your gravity well on cooldown as much as possible. And with the Great Axe you can cleave more than one target at once, so Refreshing Move is really good on the Great Axe. The second best perk on the Great Axe is Forting Strikes. Forting Strikes is really good since if you have grit, you will do 12% more damage on your attacks. Plus, if you have 300 strength, your auto attacks will have grit. Plus, if you have enduring strikes on your great axe, this little passive ability, you will gain 12% damage reduction whenever you do an attack or an ability with grit. You will gain 12% damage reduction. So it pairs really nice with your great axe. And for the last perk, you can decide either to go with an attunement perk like Abyssal Attunement. This will increase your damage. Or you can also go with a Shirking one like Shirking Lightning. Let's just find the Shirking. So with a Shirking ability, like one of these, if you dodge an attack, your damage will increase by 40%. So this is also a really good ability. And the last perk that you can go for on your Great Axe might be a weapon perk like Enfeebling Maelstrom. Enfeebling Maelstrom will apply weaken to your target and your target's damage will be reduced by 25%. So this is also a very good perk to have on your Great Axe. But if I wanted to choose the best in slot Great Axe, I would go with Attunement. So one of these attunement perks or one of the Shirking perks, depending on your playstyle and how often you can dodge attacks. But for me, I would say attunement is kinda best in slot. I would like to have the lightning attunement just because I have thunder in my name, but any of these are good. I would say go with the abyssal one or arboreal attunement one since people are starting to play with fire gems in their armor and frost gems in their armor. So choose one of these. I'm just gonna pick the abyssal one. Now, what perks do you want on your armor? If you're playing with a Great Axe, you want all resilient on your armor since this is a PvP focused build. So I would recommend 5 resilient. So why do I recommend 5 resilient? Well, there's a lot of crit damage in New World, and if you have 5 resilient and 150 con, you would have about 34.5% resilient. Most crits in this game will be nullified since most weapons have a 1.3 crit multiplier, but also take into account that Vicious can also increase the crit multiplier and so forth. Just know that 34.5% resilient is going to cancel out most crits in the game, so I do think that 5 resilient pieces is necessary. So now that you know you need resilient, let's get to some of the weapon perks. One of the best weapon perks for the Great Axe is Insatiable Gravity Wall. So Insatiable Gravity Wall is a really good perk that you should have on your Great Axe. So basically this perk will allow you to heal from your Gravity Wall. And when you throw out your gravity wall, you will do an extra burst of damage around yourself. So this is really good for damage and for healing. Another good perk that you want is of course Enfeebling Maelstrom. Enfeebling Maelstrom is going to apply weaken to your target, reducing their damage. And of course the last perk that you can go for is Fortifying Whirlwind. If you're playing with a build that is utilizing Whirlwind, you can go with Fortifying Whirlwind. But I know a lot of players aren't using Fortifying Whirlwind since their build is not relying on Whirlwind. So in my case, I'm not going to use Fortifying Whirlwind, so I'm going to cancel out this perk. What are some of the other perks that you might need? I would suggest going with Free Shirking Fortification. So why would I recommend Free Shirking Fortification? You can do more if you want, but at least have Free Shirking for it. Well, if you have Free Shirking Fortification perks, some of the rend in this game will be cancelled out by fortification. For example, if somebody throws an ice shower, it has 10% rend. If somebody does a shockwave on you, it has a 14% rend. So if you get rented, you just dodge once, you will gain a fortification buff on you, which will cancel out that rend. Or just nullify the rend that has been applied to you, since you will take less damage and that 10% rend will be cancelled out by the fortification. So now that you have Free Shirking Fortification, What are some of the other perks I would recommend? Well, I would go with Freedom. If you have at least 3 Freedom perks on your build, you can dodge Hammer Stun. So if somebody shockwaves you and they do a heavy attack on you, you can dodge that attack. So 3 Freedom is bare minimum on your build. So I would recommend going with 3 Freedom perks. And also the 2 perks that is left out, you can either go with Shirking Forward, or for your secondary weapon, you can also go with secondary weapon perks, like Sundering Shockwave and so forth if you're using a hammer, or if you use a blunderbuss, you can also slot in a blunderbuss ability. But if you don't care about using your secondary weapon, or care about those perks, I would suggest that you go with Shirking Fortification or Elemental Aversion. You can also go with cooldown reduction perk like Refreshing Ward or with Refreshing. But I would say I would like to go with Shirking Forward, since I just like to increase my survivability and so forth. So to summarize, the best in slot perks for the Great Axe is going to be Refreshing Move, Forting Strikes, either a Shirking ability like Shirking Arcane, Shirking Flames, Frost and so forth, or an attunement ability like Abyssal Attunement, Frost Attunement and so on. You can also go for Enfeebling Maelstrom, which is also really strong on the Great Axe, but in my opinion I like an attunement perk since I want to do more damage just to burst my target. And to summarize the armor perks that you want Insatiable Gravity Wall and Enfeebling Maelstrom, and also you can go for Fortifying Whirlwind if you're going to play with Whirlwind. I would also recommend 5 Resilient, 3 Freedom and 3 Shirking Fortification, and the other perks you can either fill it in with Shirking Fortification or Elemental Aversion. It's up to you. But as you know, not all of us can afford best in slot gear, so take note, you do not need best in slot to be effective in PvP. You can use 2 perkers. So if you can't afford a Great Axe, you can use a 2 perker like Refreshing Move, Forting Strikes. And if you can't afford the armor, use a 2 perker. Use Resilient with your ability. And then for the other armor pieces, if you need a 2 perker, just use Resilient with Shirking Fortification. Just drop the Freedom. I'm just showing you the best in slot perks so you can have something to work towards. With the next big patch coming out soon, Brimstone Sands, we will also get Golden Scarabs, so crafting these best in slot items will be much cheaper. I would recommend going to Eternum Craft. This is a website that can calculate the craft cost and the chances of crafting a best in slot item. So when you go here, I'll put the link on the screen here. So when you go here, you can just go to your Great Axe and you can select the perks here. And it will actually give you a percentage of what's the chances of crafting a best in slot Great Axe. Also, the curator of this website told me that they're going to update this website with the Golden Scarab. So take note that the website hasn't been updated yet, but it will be updated soon. So to use this website, you can just drag and drop the perks that you want. For example, Refreshing Move. You can just drop in these perks. Let's go for Forting Strikes. Let's type in Strikes. And the last perk, we want some Shirking. Let's just use Shirking Abyss. So here we can hit calculate or calculate with most effective charm. And it will actually show us how many times we need to craft this Great Axe to actually have the potential to roll a best in slot Great Axe. So this is really good. Remember that this is a legendary. If we make it to an epic, the times we need to craft a Great Axe will be much less. But remember, when the Golden Scarab charm comes out, this cost or the times we need to craft this Great Axe to craft the best in slot will be reduced. So don't fret about it. Just wait for the Brimstone Sands update. So again, the website that I'm using is Eternum Craft. You can do all of your research here, but just remember the Golden Scarab update hasn't been implemented on the site, but it will be implemented soon. If you want to see what's the best burst combo for the Great Axe, Reap vs Maelstrom, you can watch this video.